Hello, welcome to this episode of The Shyft, Your Mental Cafe. I'm Lilian Kelani. Thanks for joining in. Our topic for today's episode is dealing with dementia. And I have a beautiful guest with me today, Pollet. Welcome to the show.
Well, Lilian, thanks for having me.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Thank you very much for having me on
no,
your show
it's
this
absolutely
afternoon.
my pleasure. Okay, and Pollet has over 36 years experience in nursing, starting from Guyana and continuing here in Canada since 1994. So I believe that I have somebody who's an expert in talking about the subject of dementia, because currently Pollet's focus is on geriatric psychiatry with gerontology as her specialty. So I am so glad to have you. You're most welcome.
Thank you again, Lilian. And I'm going to have to say that I would have to say I'm experienced. I'm not an expert in geriatric psychiatry, but I'm very experienced having worked in this field for maybe the last 20 years. So I would more say experience rather than being an expert. And today we're here, basically we're going to be talking about dementia, and we're going to focus on dementia, and we're going to talk about, simply because this is a topic that people are still afraid to talk about. Mm-hmm. It needs to come more to the forefront, simply because going through my years of nursing and working with the community, mm-hmm. you find that people are still not believing that their families have dementia.
Right.
And it still seems to be a problem, and I think we still need to be having more conversations and bringing this to the forefront so that there can be a better understanding and education with regards to this topic.
Thank you. And that's why we have the Shyft, because we want to talk about things that affect us and our community. And so when we talk about dementia, people have actually, I spend most of my days asking people what is dementia, because I work with dementia clients as well. I just find people do not really know what exactly dementia is. So can you help us in throwing some light as to what is dementia?
Dementia, it's basically, it falls under an umbrella. Mm-hmm. Dementia is basically, it's a set of symptoms. It's it comes under a set of symptoms which affects the brain. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's like equal to a brain failure.
Good.
And there's signs and symptoms. There are early signs and symptoms that you can tell, mm-hmm. that your family is having this problem. Like, one of the main problems that they usually have is memory loss. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They tend to forget things. They cannot recall. Mm-hmm. Like, you would have a conversation with them 5 minutes ago. They can't recall that conversation. They cannot recall what happened yesterday. They tend to put things down and they're not able to recall, where did I put this?
And these are the symptoms. So I think that's where we need to educate people a little bit. That's one thing I wanted to really focus on today, is the fact that when we ask people what is dementia, they say confusion. You know, it's actually, confusion is a symptom. Dementia is brain failure. The brain is failing. And that's why someone suffering from dementia would, have things like throwing things in different places. It would affect their activities of daily living, because you're having the brain not able to communicate with the rest of the body as it should, right?
Yeah, and with regards to confusion too, we have to be careful with diagnosing someone with dementia, mm-hmm. because they're confused. Right. Because there's something called the differential diagnosis. Mm-hmm. You could be confused, but that doesn't mean you have dementia.
That's true.
Right?
You could
we all get confused.
It could be delirium. Right? It could be, yeah.
Because it could be delirium. Yeah. It could be that they had a change in medication.
Yeah.
It could be they're dehydrated. All these kind of things could be happening with this individual. And that's why in terms of diagnosing dementia, you have to take your family to the doctor. Don't just say, oh, he's confused. Oh, he has dementia. There's lab tests that you can do which can help to diagnose. There imaging tests, like, they can do a CT scan.
Yeah.
And a CT scan can tell you the brain function.
Right.
And see what's happening with the brain. And then we know, well, there's something actually really happening. And this has to be an overtime. It doesn't, you can't come today and see this person have these symptoms today, and you say tomorrow, oh, my dad has dementia. No, it's not like that.
But isn't that what we're finding in the society? I feel like dementia is not properly diagnosed half the time, because a lot of the time people go to the GP, they sit there for 12 minutes, 15 minutes, and they get that slap on their that label.
Yeah,
you have dementia, right? But we know that there's more to it. There's more tests that need to be done. And dementia for most people it occurs more in older adults, 65 and up. But do you know the age of the youngest person with dementia?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked me that, because I was reading and I was watching a program. The youngest person in the world with dementia, with the actual diagnosis of dementia, is 25 years old.
Oh my God.
I thought it was 36 years.
Because we've seen
I
a
read
few
that
40 something, right?
So, the guy in England who was 36 years old. We have had patients who were 46 years old with dementia. And I was like, 46 years old, this is within my age group. I'm not 46, but
you're only 25.
But we've had people who were in, our youngest we've had was 46, and I was like amazed that dementia at 46. But now I'm understanding that the youngest person in the world with dementia is 25 years old. So that person now is placed into the group they call the younger generation.
Wow, that is so sad.
Yeah, and then there's the regular generation, which is 65 and over. So if you are in the younger generation, you're within that age group.
Wow, that is really, really scary. And you know what? I just find that I've also we've seen this happen actually, where people with, some other, there's that comorbidity with dementia. There's people with developmental issues like Down syndrome. I find that they are more susceptible to having dementia.
And what we're seeing also, yes, they're saying that they're more susceptible. And it's showing now that 65% more of clients with Down syndrome are developing dementia.
Yeah.
So the numbers are rising. Before, we never see this kind of diagnosis with people so young and within these certain age groups having dementia. But this is what is happening now, and the stats are showing, right? And we have to be very careful also with diagnosing dementia, because I find that sometimes the word is just thrown around.
Yes. And it's always Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks that the only form of dementia is Alzheimer's. But we know now that there's over 60 to 70 types of dementia. And actually some of them are so difficult to treat. Like when you're looking at the ones like vascular dementia, Lewy body, that is so misdiagnosed with Lewy body because they think it's Parkinson's half the time.
Yes, it is.
Right? And it's so hard on caregivers. So then when we're looking at dementia, I've had a few viewers, send me messages and say, please, I have loved ones that are suffering from dementia. I don't have enough information. Can you please talk about this topic? What are some of the symptoms, common ones that people would see and get concerned and go seek further assessment at the doctors?
One of the most common forms that you're going to see, one of the common symptoms you're going to see with regards to dementia, and it's always the first one, it's the memory loss.
Yeah.
The memory loss, the confusion, the wandering, the irritability, losing direction.
Right.
They can never find their rooms. That's why you have to have visuals, and these are the things, these are the common signs that you see. They start losing their way, they're forgetting things. I watch shows whereby people would go instead of putting the stuff in the fridge, the meat in the fridge, they put it in the cupboard,
right,
and then they blame somebody else that they put it in there, but they don't remember. And this is one of the signs that you have to look for, that confusion and the disorientation.
And it's the little things is what I find. So we, on a regular basis, deal with patients, with people with dementia. And what I find is you do not know how many steps are involved with actually just brushing your teeth. There's a lot of steps in there because you have to take the toothbrush, you have to put the toothpaste on it, you have to get a cup, put water on it, stand in front of a mirror, take your hand, put it to the mouth, and start, brushing the teeth. We don't think about it when we do it. But for someone who's dealing with dementia, the memory loss and the gaps we're talking about is that they end up missing a few steps in between. So you see a patient with dementia, they started the step, they got in front of the mirror, maybe took the brush, but absolutely forgot step 3, 4, and 5 in between. Right? And next thing, they remember they need to brush their hair. And so you find them with the toothbrush combing the hair. And you're like, Mom, Dad, what are you doing? You're confused. No, it's because they know that they want to look good. I need to brush my teeth. I need to comb my hair. But they remembered the portion of holding the brush and missed a few steps, forgot a few steps in there, and started brushing the hair. Right? And that's how these things happen. And you're wondering, why would somebody take a toothbrush and use it to brush the hair? It's because of the gaps in there.
And this is where education comes in.
Right.
I strongly believe in education for any disease or any topic. I believe in education. This is where education of the caregivers, the families, must be important, because some of these people don't even know what they're seeing.
Right.
Right? They would get irritable with the mom and say, Mom is getting on my nerves because every time I come, I can't find things. She's putting things in different places. She cannot remember my name. And when that happens, and we as caregivers who are educated in this department, who has the experience, we need to start talking with the families and saying, asking questions, simple questions. Do you know exactly? Tell me what you're seeing. Do you know, is there a difference with what was happening with Mom last month and what is happening today? Because you find that sometimes the dementia progresses so fast. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
We would have somebody walk into our door today, and they're walking and talking. They're talking, but they might have word salad. And if you know, word salad is where everything is jumbled.
Mumbo jumbo,
right?
Yeah.
And they're able to do things. And within a month, you're asking yourself, what happened? What happened? She can no longer walk. She can no longer talk. She's mixing up her food. She cannot even pick up the spoon, and this is where education comes in. And families need support. Yeah. They need a lot of support when these things happen.
So we're going to, I'm glad you're going there, because we're going to talk about families and the support that they need, because I totally agree with you, Pollet, is that one of the major problems when we, a lot of the times when we receive patients is because the families are not prepared at all. They have no information. They don't understand what's going on with their loved one. No one is preparing them for this journey ahead, because it is a journey. The moment someone gets diagnosed with dementia, is there a cure?
There's absolutely no cure for dementia.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, dementia progresses until death.
Mm.
There is no cure for dementia. And this is why we need to prepare families for this. And we as nurses, we carry an umbrella too.
Yes.
Right? We don't carry the dementia umbrella, but we carry an umbrella because we have to be educators too and discuss these things with the family. We have to give them the support. We have to tell them where to get the support.
Yeah.
Also, because, like for me, working with dementia and having a family member with dementia, it's totally different. Because close to home for me, my mom had dementia. And being a nurse for so long, despite my mom having dementia, I was not prepared for it.
Wow.
I wasn't prepared. So I had to be the one, being at the time the only nurse in the family. I had to be the one to educate my family about dementia, because with the contractures, my mom, I never heard her swear
all her life.
And when she had dementia, I was wondering, was she a sailor or something? She just swore at everybody and they couldn't understand. So I spent a lot of time on the phone communicating with my family, giving them a lot of teaching.
Right.
And telling them what to expect, what not to do. She would ask for her money. They would say she didn't need money. And I would say, give her, even if it's a bill. Something. So she knows she has that money. And as soon as she gets that money, she calmed down. Same thing with my dad. My dad had heart disease, but he started getting dementia, right? And when my sister called me and said, I don't know what's happening with Daddy. He keeps opening the door. He's getting up at night. We're finding him outside 2 o'clock in the morning in the streets and stuff. I flew home to see what was happening. And it still brings tears to my eyes today, even though I have my patients and I've been working with them for so long. It still brings tears to my eyes when I walked in the door and my father couldn't remember me.
That must be so hard.
It was very hard, and it still is hard today, even though he's been gone for a few years. It still brings tears to my eyes when I realize and I remember that my dad didn't even know my name. When I told him who I was, he said, no, you're not my daughter. My daughter is in Canada. So this is where education comes in.
Yeah.
And I always believe education, and I cannot emphasize enough that we need to be educating people more about dementia, the signs, the early signs, what to look for, where do they go for help. Instead of leaving your loved one home, you cannot leave them home if you're suspecting that they have these signs.
Thank you so much, and I'm sorry thanks for sharing about your parents. That must be so hard. One thing we find a lot is families coming, like you said. I think there's different stages to this dementia. There's various levels to it. But one of the levels that families find totally heartbreaking is when dad or mom does not recognize you. That it just breaks your heart, or your husband or your wife does not know who you are anymore. And I know families really struggle with that. And that's why we, a lot of the time as caregivers, try to show, teach and show empathy, because you can never be prepared. The other part I find is people arguing with their loved one, arguing with dad, and that mom says, I need to get ready, 80-something-year-old. I have to go to school. My boss is waiting. And you start arguing. mom, you're 80 something. There's no point. Just meet them where they're at and just try and be there in that moment with the loved one. And one thing I would like to talk about is cultural beliefs around dementia, because I know your parents at the time were in Guyana, and so how does that culture, how do they perceive dementia and various cultures? Because we see a lot of cultures here in Canada, and we see the diversity in how different cultures, when they bring their loved ones to hospital, for example, some people do not want them there because culturally they have to be home. I have to take care of my mom, despite the fact that I'm breaking out and I can't cope. But because of the cultural belief that says I have to take care of my mom, they feel the burden of having to take care of them. The other culture, of course, is the cultures that are ashamed, to even own up to the fact that their parents have dementia, and so they keep hiding it.
Yes.
What else have you seen?
I have seen so much when it comes to the different cultures. Let me start, for example, I'm from Guyana. And I left Guyana 25 years ago, so I don't know how much education it has evolved around dementia over the years. But from my experience of visiting Guyana, going back home on a regular basis, I still see whereby people have this belief that dementia doesn't exist.
Wow.
And I can tell you close to home again. When my mom had dementia, you know what somebody told us? She had to do something bad in life in order to get dementia. And this is where the ignorance comes in, And I had to educate that person informally without letting them know that I knew exactly that this was the actual person who said that. Yeah. But I formally educated them on the subject of dementia and what to expect, because I couldn't believe that in this day and age, people are saying that she had to do something bad.
Oh my.
The belief that, I've come across where people say, my father doesn't have dementia. He just need to sleep.
Oh yeah, we've heard that a lot.
We've heard that before. My father doesn't have dementia.
He's just tired. He needs to sleep.
Coming to where we work, we work in geriatric psych. People look at us and get mad with us. We didn't make the diagnosis. The doctor made the diagnosis, but they get mad. They turn on us and say to us that we're lying. Mom doesn't have dementia. Dad doesn't have dementia.
She became worse when she got here. That's the one we hear a lot. She was fine before I brought her here. You made her worse.
And I asked myself, if she was fine before, why did she even come here? Right? And we're told a lot of times, my mom doesn't have dementia. You guys are giving her dementia. You guys are making her look like she has dementia because you're giving her medication because you guys want money. It has nothing to do with us. And this is where it still needs to come to light that dementia does exist. And it is an actual diagnosis, and there are symptoms that you can watch for, symptoms that you have to be aware of.
Thank you very much. And I also know, most important, some cultures that what they want to do is they know their loved one has dementia, but they can't own up to it because of the stigma and discrimination, because they believe that if I own up to this fact that my loved one has dementia, then people are going to look at me thinking I'm going to get it because they are my family.
And that's
I can't share the same spoon. Some people will say, I can't share the same spoon with someone, my loved one with dementia. I can't eat from the same plate. I as a caregiver, I come home and some of my loved one will say, you need to go into the shower. You've been dealing with dementia all day. I'm like, really? Is that how you get dementia?
Is that how you get dementia? And that's
the
one
ignorance
of the myths.
just kills me.
And it's more or less a myth. Sometimes we say ignorance, but sometimes we have to go easy on them because of the lack of education.
Yeah.
Right? And we as caregivers, we understand. So we have to teach ourselves that we have to teach them. And we have to do it in a way that will help them to understand. So we have to start now by changing our language.
Yes, the shift in language.
Yes. We have to do a shift in language.
Yeah.
Instead of saying that they're ignorant towards what's happening with the family, we just simply say we need to do some education
To support them.
and we need to support these families because more and more people are getting dementia and they are becoming, they're younger and younger, and there's about 100 of the symptoms that you can come across with the different types of dementia. You know, like some people never even heard of Korsakoff dementia. Korsakoff dementia is the one that's alcohol related.
Yeah.
And when you say Korsakoff dementia, they're like, I didn't even know there was such a thing as Korsakoff dementia. So we have to continue to bring this to the forefront and let people know that it does exist.
Right.
Teach them that there's no cure and prepare them for what will happen coming towards the end.
Yeah, that's true. And that's partly why we're doing this bit, you know, to be able to help people. Now, when we talk about caregivers, you know, it's a broad term. A lot of people do not know what we mean. Caregivers are people who look after people that have dementia. I mean, dementia caregivers. Of course, there can be caregivers in any field you work in. But for dementia caregivers, you're taking care of somebody with dementia on a daily basis. And sometimes we hear a lot of caregiver burnout. What does that mean?
Actually, you know, to put it in the layman terms, it's more or less the fatigue and the mental fatigue that goes with taking care of your loved ones with dementia, because it is not an easy task.
That's true.
When sometimes we have patients come to hospital with dementia, we ask ourselves, how long have they been taking care of this person at home? Or sometimes they come simply because of caregiver burnout. And that's because the families are so physically and mentally fatigued.
Exhausted,
They are exhausted. They can no longer deal with it. They become irritable with their loved ones. You know, they started neglecting them to the point that sometimes there's abuse.
Yeah, it leads to abuse, sometimes.
So they need support too. And when they come, we need to be giving them that information. Where do they go for the kind of support that they also need? And a caregiver is not necessarily a nurse. A caregiver could be a husband, a daughter, a cousin, a wife, an uncle, an aunt, the children, anybody, even the home care workers who go into the home. They also are mentally fatigued sometimes because they don't have the training that we have, that myself and you have. They don't have that kind of training.
And that's why you need to look out for yourself, because if you're feeling some of these symptoms, because sometimes caregiver burnout symptoms can look like depression, it can look like anxiety, because you just find you're irritable, you can't stand anything. You need to look after yourself. Some of the things you can do is developing your own personal support plan ahead of time. Once your loved one is diagnosed with dementia, you need to start looking at how am I going to care for them and how am I going to care for myself. ask for help, learn or update caregiving skills, join a support group, make use of available resources, plan for your own care, learn how to manage stress, seek regular respite care, know when you've had enough and you need a break because you don't want that to lead to abuse. Get moving, do exercise, go out in the morning, go for a walk. Exercise helps the brain. Talk to someone, take time to play, with that loved one. And please do not forget to see the funny side. Humor helps a lot. As mental health nurses, sometimes people wonder why we laugh, why some things, that we joke about. We're not joking about it. We're not laughing at the situation. It's a coping mechanism to actually have some sense of humor in life. So as a loved one, do not feel guilty that you're happy sometimes. It's okay to have humor. It's okay to be happy. Now, at the end of the day, we want you to know that you're not alone. Whether you're living with dementia or a caregiver, remember that there's support for you out there. There's a lot of resources out there. You just need to ask for it, right? So, very quickly, while we wrap up, we just want to talk about some of the facts about dementia. What are the things that people should really know about dementia?
I was thinking at this point, one of the things that they need to put away with regards to dementia are some of the myths.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Because what I find is that people tend to focus more on the myths rather than the facts.
Facts, yeah.
Right? Some of the myths they have is that my family has dementia, so I'm going to get it.
Yeah,
That's not true.
Right.
Because your family has dementia, that doesn't mean that you will get it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
And the fact, unfortunately, is that they have dementia, the brain is dying. Dementia is chronic, it's progressive, and unfortunately, it will lead to death. So you need to get prepared as a loved one. You need to be prepared as a caregiver and know when to seek for help. Know when to ask for help. Talk about it. Do not do this all by yourself because you have help, you have families, you have, professionals and people that are going to help you. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's about all we have time for. I know it's not a lot. 30 minutes.
Yes.
People have said to me, you need to make this longer. It's not enough. So is there anything you want to say to our viewers today while we end the show today?
I just want to say to our viewers that dementia exists. Learn the signs and symptoms. Educate yourselves about dementia. If you discover that your family member is having some signs and symptoms of dementia, please don't argue with them. Seek help.
Yeah. You've heard it from Pollet. Seek help. Don't argue with them. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for joining myself and Pollet
thank you
on the
for
show.
having
Thank you
me.
so much for being here.
It was wonderful being here.
Thank you so much. For more information, please visit our website, www.theshyft.ca, for more information and for resources. Everything we talked about today will be on the website. Until I see you again, continue to follow us on Facebook, continue to like us, continue to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and please subscribe to our YouTube page. It's The Shyft with Lilian Kelani. Next week, I'm going to have two wonderful guests talking about depression and suicide. Don't forget to tune in and have a great week. Bye.